the background of my parents is really very, very diverse. Is when you have this problem with society, with history, and the history of India and Pakistan is heavy loaded, and Greek and Turkey is heavy loaded too. You can have transformation, top down, not bottom up.
People who are decision makers have contacts with each other. Hello and welcome to the third episode of Alchemy of Transformation, where we discover, we research, we go in depth with experts in a matter of importance about transformation. What is transformation? Transformation is not 20%, not incremental change, not 30% change. Transformation is to change the essence of things. And that is what life is about, and that is what the world should be about in the times that we live in. How do we transform the self, the society, and the community, our countries, and the world? And today we're going to talk about the transformation of Grand Central Strategy, the highest level of foreign policy strategy that there exists, and how to achieve peace using crisis. To achieve that and to go in depth with that is a very good friend of mine, someone I've spent a lot of time in Boston. I've also spent a lot of time in Greece when I visited him. And he's someone who's very knowledgeable, someone I respect, but also has the right credentials. He has got so many credentials that I can't explain all of them. But in short, he is one of the foremost policy planning, strategy officers of the Hellenic or the Greek Navy. He comes from a family of army officers, and he has been an academic. He was with me at the Harvard Kennedy School, where he was a Literature scholar over there, but he did a PhD in political Islam and has been both a student in warfare, in grand strategy, in various Hellenic naval academies, but also a professor. And something later on, which is very relevant to what we're going through in Pakistan, he negotiated with the IMF, the European Commission, some very tough times when Greece was going through a financial crisis. So come and welcome on this journey of discovering transformation of Grand Central Strategy in achieving peace in the region, in the world, with Kleanthis Kyriakidis, better known as KK, and his name hails from the Black Sea area, and we'll find out a lot about where he comes from, his story, and the story of self. So welcome, KK, to the Alchemy of Transformation podcast. Good to have you here, friend.
Thank you very much, dear Ahmad. And I will be allowed, I assume, to call you Ahmad, since we have been longtime friends. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you and share some thoughts as regards the transformation, and also some personal stories that I think I never told anybody, so you will be the first one to hear, which shows how, really I was transformed and how I tried to help in transforming both the community and how I see this transformation being important and how it can be achieved for the future of our world, really.
Absolutely, and that is the reason why I always found our discussions very insightful around the region, about politics, foreign policy, the world of Islam. You are at the moment in, Greece has been a center of civilization, philosophy, warfare also. So there's a lot of history to Greece. Now you are based in Dubai, in academic, mashallah, doing very well in the University of Emirates. So we will go more about your work later, but tell us about yourself, your ancestors, your parents. Where did you come from? And if somebody wants to know about KK, where does KK come from? And what are the important inflection points? Do share with us.
Well, let me start by explaining that when I was born and I grew up, and this is for your younger audience, There was no such thing as internet, obviously. There were no mobile phones. There was no social networking. There was only one influence for young kids, especially if you were born in rural areas in Greece. So the sole influence you could have was your parents. Frankly speaking, if you were lucky enough to have some good teachers were also very, very important. And I will come to this part later. However, it is interesting because the background of my parents is really very, very diverse. So I have, an islander mother. She comes from a very beautiful island, the island of Naxos, and from what is called, the aristocracy. Actually, she could trace, may God rest her soul, she could trace her ancestors practically to a Byzantine emperor, but also to the aristocracy of Venetia. So it is really interesting. Her family had by far the biggest, estate, don't even say villa, huge estate in the island, and they had their coat of arms. So I want you to understand, the background of my mother, since her grandmother could not speak Greek because her nanny was French. We're talking about Greece, that at the time was a very poor country. So just to understand, we're talking about really, really, really aristocracy. However, my father's background was exactly the opposite. He came to Greece, actually his parents came to Greece from a mountainous village from the Black Sea region of Turkey as refugees. They had practically nothing. They were farmers. My father had 11 siblings. So they were extremely poor. When my father managed to enter the military academy, that was not a success of my father or of my family, not even of the village. It was of the region. So it was that unrare. So it was that rare. It was that really spectacular to have someone from this region. Practically, they did not even have shoes to wear. My father wore for the first time shoes when he entered the military academy. So we're talking about a very, very, very different background. And these two people that normally, this couple normally would have never met in normal circumstances, they met and they fell in love at a time again that in Greece, almost everybody was married through arranged marriages. So it's almost like a fairy tale, but it's very interesting because at the time, my mother's family was really, really, really in the decline. My father was building up a name. He became a general of the special forces. My mother, despite the fact that she had potential for really great things, she was just, this is not derogatory, but she was a teacher in high school. She could have easily been, a university professor with her potential. So they met, and, after a while, my brother and myself were born. My brother is another great influence, and you will understand later why. So, if your mother is an educator and your father is in the armed forces, most likely it's the examples to imitate. So all my life, I wanted to become an educator or an armed forces officer. Finally, I ended up being both. So I ended up my career as a naval officer, and after that, there was this self-transformation in the career in academia. So this is the first thing which is important. Of course, I can tell you that in my transformation, it was very, very important to know the amazing education that I was lucky enough to have under scholarship in Harvard. It's good. I did not pay anything. This is good. So and also Naval postgraduate school with another couple of masters. So I had these amazing professors. When you have Heifetz, and we had them together, Heifetz, Gantz, Joseph Nye, Stephen Walsh. Then really, something changes in the way you perceive things.
And I think
you also understand you can play a role.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think it's very unique to have KK because we in Pakistan mostly hear from the Turkish side of history, because of course we are very close to the Turks. We have a lot of shared history, but we don't hear much about the Greek side of the history and how the wars and how it came about. So, what is fascinating is about how your parents came together. And I would imagine you're talking about post-World War II Europe, where families are being split apart. There's a lot of migration. There is a lot of course, poverty, destruction, but there's also a lot of upward mobility. People doing well. And I think, armed forces was a channel, and so was civil service in certain countries for people to get ahead. When there was hardly any business, when there was hardly other, academia per se. And it's very similar because my father was also in the Pakistan military, and he had also migrated, and he was part of the military. And actually, in my parents' generation, almost everyone is from the military armed forces, either from the infantry, none from the Navy, but mostly on the armed forces side of it. But yes, the military had a huge influence in us getting where we are, because myself, I was born in a military cantonment in Bahawalpur, and then grew up another one, and then the main headquarters city of Rawalpindi. So I do understand where you're coming from. But tell us a little bit more about the Black Sea area where your father came from, because it seems that there was a lot of, there was a lot happening at that time with Armenia, Turkey, World War I, World War II. So how did your father make your way to Greece, and then subsequently your decision to go and join the Navy?
Actually, my father was born in Greece. So my grandparents, I could have said migrated, but really it's not the proper term. So they were refugees practically. They left during World War I, towards the end of World War I. So just before the Greek intervention / invasion, it's how you see history, obviously, in Turkey. And
the Aznaks and everything that happened, yes.
What we called later on, the Asia Minor disaster for Greece, or the Turkish War of Independence. Again, how you see history. So it's always interesting. And it's interesting because, there were more than 2 million Greeks living in Turkey at that time. So after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, practically based on international treaty, the Greek army invaded, it's true, Turkey, and then we had a war for almost 4 years. So the family of my father, again, we're talking about poor, illiterate, practically, people. And I tell you this because everybody thinks that in Greece, that everybody who came from Izmir or who came from Trabzon, they were rich and they were really powerful. No, you had also some villages that were very, very poor. The village of my grandparents was half Turkish and half Greek, and they had excellent relations among them. And I have heard them speaking about that. So which is another point that we'll reach in the end, which has to do with the mentality, and has to do with how you perceive someone as a friend, or how you can perceive as an enemy. So they had to leave because of the war, practically. And then, of course, after 1922, things got much worse, and we had, thank God, the exchange of population. And after that, things were, calm. And for a period, actually, there was a Greek-Turkish friendship between the two leaders of the countries, the famous Venizelos for Greece and Mustafa Kemal Atatürk from Turkey. So we had our good periods of cooperation and peace, but it did not last for long.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's interesting to see how these people from the Black Sea region, they left, and either through Russia or straight, they ended up in Greece. My folks went to the northern part of Greece, Macedonia. Of course, Macedonia is another issue, which is interesting, but we will not discuss it, I think, now. But another very, very interesting issue. And my father, as I told you, was the first one in the entire region that managed to do something different, move upwards, as you probably had, from your family, some similar some similar stories how you have heard, not only from your father but from others. So, and he met my mother when they were both in far away from their own birthplace. So imagine someone from an island and someone from the north part of Greece, and the refugee family practically meeting in Athens. Athens at the time was not that huge, and the rest is history. This is, I think, an interesting story, and shows also that armed forces at the time, and I think that in many countries is the same, are also very, very important for their meritocracy. So you did not need to be famous or from a rich family or whatever. You could enter in a military academy based on your merit, even if you're extremely poor. No corruption at all as regards the exams in pan-Hellenic level, pan-Greek level. So again, this is very interesting, because in a country that you have a lot of corruption, and in many other places, we tried to keep armed forces out of it, which is good.
And it's fantastic. It's very similar to Pakistan also, because our armed forces also are most meritocratic. Nobody is ideal as compared to politics. And there's a saying that the way to become the president or the prime minister of the country for any low, middle, or middle class person is by joining the military, because then you can become the army chief and then conduct a coup and become the prime minister or the president. But otherwise, if you join the political race, it's not going to happen, because it's very dynastic. And so tell us a bit more about the influences that you had from your father and your mother, and also your elder brother. You had mentioned that. How did they shape your value system, the decisions that you made, and where you've ended up today? Tell us some more about that.
My mother was a passionate educator. Being an educator now myself, I can really trace this DNA running in my veins. How much I feel passionate about education. Definitely, I took that from my mother. There is no single question about that, and you can see that from the very, very, very beginning. I remember myself, because of my mother, always holding a book in my hands. I don't know, probably even without being able to read or understand everything that is written in the book. But I really wanted to acquire knowledge. I wanted to learn things. And then I wanted also to become a storyteller and speak about these things. Disseminate the information, disseminate the knowledge. And this, again, was subconscious. And it was because of the example of my mother. So most likely I could have been a teacher or probably university professor back in Greece, but there was also the other side, and the other side prevailed. That was the side of my father. So imagine having, someone coming. This is your father, someone coming every day home, wearing his uniform and telling you stories about the service, and service. It's not always war. For instance, all the disaster management at the time was done by the military. I remember my father, taking part in earthquake recoveries, in firefighting, wildfires, name it, whatever you can think of, because always the army had the material and also the training to deal with this. So it was my hero. I mean, it's very, very normal for every kid to see in his parents his heroes, but for me, my father was probably the hero for other persons too. So it was very, very easy to say from the very beginning, I would like to be like my dad. Of course, I would like to be like my mom. And then you had a very rational choice, which is when you enter the military academy or the naval academy, from early on, you get a salary, you are a public servant, you will stay for 25, 35 years in the Navy, in the armed forces, done. So probably it's a better choice. Okay, you love education, but this is a more rational choice for your life. And yes, this is a rational choice for your life, but why Navy? Everybody in my family was army. And here is my brother. My brother was the first one that became a naval officer. He's 3 years older than me. So suddenly I had my brother becoming a naval officer. And I said, okay, I will do what my brother did. I love it. It's great. He was doing great in the academy. He's head of his class. He's now Admiral 1-star. Perfect. Everything is fine. So I say, this is something to do. I have to do this. And the truth is that I had also a couple of relatives that were also in the Navy. And they told me something very simple as well. Again, here is the logic of things that, if you are in the army, you will need to go to every single corner of Greece. If you are in the Navy, there are 2 or 3 bases done. So you will be able to settle down as well if you want to have a family. You will not have all these transfers every single year or every couple of years. So this is why, and this is how I decided to become an officer. And really, the Naval Academy years were very, very, very formative for me. But of course, apart from the training that I had, which includes training in France, the most important thing was later on the education.
So tell me something, the Battle of Salamis, that had nothing to do with you joining the Navy. Of course, it's one of the most historical naval battles to have been fought between the Asian Persians and the Greek Empire. And the role of a woman, the Oracle of Delphi, which I visited, is very interesting in that. So you are you sure you didn't have anything to do with that? That had nothing to do with it?
First of all, for the audience, everybody has to understand that I'm not that old. So I did not participate in this battle.
It's a very 2,000-year-old battle, yes, of course.
A lot of naval historians believe that it's the first really big naval battle in history. And Greeks are very, very proud to be of a naval nation. And as I told you, my mother is from an island. You can have some influence there as well. And it's not only the naval battle of Salamis. I mean, even naval battles, big ones, took place in Greece, and people do not know because of the names. The last big battle of rowing ships took place in Greece. The naval battle of Lepanto. It was between the Ottoman Empire and the West. Very, very interesting naval battle. So yes, we have all this history. Actually, the problem with Greece is that we produce more history that we can consume. So this is a problem in Greece.
One thing very interesting about Greece is it's a bit like the Islamic world, is that this has got a lot of glory in the past. And we'll talk about it a bit later. It's got a beautiful history. And a lot of, it was the center of civilization and power, economic, Sparta, military power, a lot of learning. And yet the history is behind and the present and the future is not that glorious. Which is a lot which is happening in the Islamic world. A lot of people then rely too much looking back into the past rather than focusing on the present and the future. And I think that's interesting that Greece has it, and a lot of Muslim worlds have the same phenomenon going on.
It is true, and especially after 2008, that we had the huge financial crisis, and people realized suddenly that, okay, we are members of the European Union, but we did not become Germany or France overnight. So that was a wake-up call. Frankly speaking, Greece did a lot of things. Imagine that we gained our independence from the Ottoman Empire in the early 1820s, actually in the late 1820s. At the time, Yemen was considered to be a much richer region, of the Ottoman Empire than Greece. So, again, everything is relative. So you can say that Greece did fairly well for almost a couple of centuries. Still, we took advantage of being part of the European family, and in the end, we did not really prepare the future. This is the expression that I should use really. We did not prepare the future. We were unlucky to have an occupation during World War II. We participated in many wars since 1828. World War I, World War II, name it, Korea. We were everywhere practically. But especially World War II and a civil war that followed World War II destroyed big part of Greece, a big part of Greece. So again, we have step backs. We hope that we will we will gain a momentum again. And yeah, this is what we should focus on, because the last 15 years have been bad for this, for sure. If we had the same discussion back in 2004, 2005, we believe that we're in the top of the world, one of the best countries in the world. But then we had this wake-up call with the financial crisis. Yes, and a lot of Greeks, unfortunately, they still speak about the glorious past. They don't make any effort to try to prepare a glorious future. We will see. And again, this is a matter of mentality. This is a matter of mindset. And I hope that we will discuss. I will explain my point, which is that mindset is extremely important, and it can change, and it should change, and it will change. We have to be optimistic.
So tell us more about your naval career, because it seems you were like a star planning, staff officer for planning and strategy. So tell us more about what kind of projects, what kind of strategy you were involved in, any interesting experiences, battles or meetings or things that you were part of, in interesting developments that the audience would be interested to hear.
Yeah, well, first of all, that our NATO ally is our potential enemy, which is Turkey. So I participated as a junior officer in some crises. Actually, the most interesting and important crisis is EMEA in 1996. I was a weapon system officer, and really, the whole feeling is that we go to war. It was the first time that I was sure that we were going to war, and I was ready for this, prepared for this.
Is it not like when the Cyprus invasion or the war took place? That was not considered.
No. The Cyprus invasion is really back in 1974. I could tell you about my father participating.
Yeah. Okay. So for you, but for Greece there was a war.
So practically the last time that you had Greeks fighting with Turks, despite the fact that there were very, very few the Greeks and they were in Cyprus, was the invasion in Cyprus in 1974. But this is different. So after that, we had some issues. Always we have some issues with Turkey. Come on. I mean, if someone can understand that, is someone from Pakistan, because you have all these issues with India. So we don't need to explain many things. When you have when you have a neighbor that is much stronger than you in numbers, and you try also to build your deterrence, and you have crisis, and you need to be strong enough to fight back if you have to, but also you need to resolve things in a diplomatic way. So I participated as a junior officer in crisis on a tactical level, but when I grew up, I became the director of plans and policy. Before that, director of strategy in the Greek Navy. So as such, I also faced some things, crisis again between the two countries, or even crisis in Turkey, like the coup against Erdogan, the attempted coup. When it happened, I was really the plans and policy director of the Greek Navy.
This is 2016.
Yes. And I was really paying attention to this because we needed to see,
So tell me one thing: did the Russians provide cover to Erdogan when he flew into? Because there is a lot of conspiracy that goes on about it, that the Russian planes came and escorted Erdogan, so he landed in Ankara or Istanbul. You would probably know that or not.
You understand that even if I had known that, I don't know that. I would not have said that in this podcast. However, I can tell you that the entire international community was very reluctant to say anything the first couple of hours. When we had solid information about what is going to happen, and we knew that much earlier than the media or whatever, then we informed the politicians, and you had this support towards Erdogan, everybody speaking about democracy. But in the beginning, everybody was very, very reluctant, which reminds me a little bit about the Arab Spring. But in the beginning, everybody was very, very, very reluctant to see what's going to happen in Egypt and other countries as well.
It was very touch and go. By the way, it was very touch and go. In the initial few hours, it could have gone the other way also.
Yeah, true. So the whole idea is that yes, I participated in this crisis, but I was also a deck officer, so I commanded my own ship. I really participated in important positions. I took some important positions. In NATO. I was studying Naval Forces Mediterranean Sea. I was the electronic warfare, communication, and protection officer when we had the terrorist attack from Al Qaeda against the USS Cole in Aden. Imagine,
yes.
I was the protection officer of the force. So everybody, came up to me. Okay, now we need to reschedule everything, all our trips.
Where was your position? Where was your position at that time?
Standing naval forces in the Mediterranean. So there is a NATO standing group with 8 ships, one from different countries, 8 countries, Greece, Turkey among them. And we had common exercises, and we were ready to participate in operation if there was the need to do so. So at the time, being the protection officer, which means practically you speak with intelligence and you are responsible for the protection when you are in a port. That was really interesting. And again, I was communication officer and electronic warfare officer mainly, but in the end, everything was about rescheduling, how we will go, in which ports we will go, in which naval bases we will go, in order to protect the ships after the sudden attack and very daring attack of Al Qaeda against an American ship, USS Cole. So however, if I had to single out one experience that it's really, really interesting and important for your audience, I think, is when I was advisor and at the military staff of the alternate Minister of Defense. Alternate Minister of Defense is at the same level with Minister of Defense, so they speak straight with the Prime Minister. It's not, a deputy minister. And my minister was responsible for the defense industry. So one day, she called me and told me, you know something, based on your experience, and I have seen what you have done here, and blah 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 blah. We want you to be the negotiator, and the point of contact with the European Commission, International Monetary Fund, and European Central Bank as regards the transformation, and as regards the future of the Hellenic defense systems, which is the most important Hellenic defense industry. I was astonished. I said, okay, I can do it. I will do it. No problem. But the whole idea was to try to change, the relations between, what we called at the time the Troika. So these three institutions and ourselves, because the whole idea was that Greece is in crisis, and somehow we don't need. This was their idea. We don't need the defense industry because we lose money out of it. So and it is very easy to say, come on, you go and tell them, guys, it's not like this. Of course, you need defense industry and done. No, it's much, much, much more elaborate. Needed a lot of hard work from me and from my team, days and nights, and then the reports. And trying to find, and you had some very, very good agreements in order to produce and sell some armament. Believe me, that was a very, very hard time. There were so many families' lives at stake because we were pushed to fire a lot of people. So it was a dual really challenge. Having a lot of families losing their jobs and their everyday bread, and also to lose the capability of the country to have a real defense industry. It worked very well.
So tell us more about it, because we are facing a financial crisis, a near default situation. We have IMF tough conditions, including cut down in defense, non-productive defense expenditure, non-combat expenditure, a lot of pressure on that. So tell us, what were the initial demands that came to you, and to what extent the cuts wanted to be? What did you negotiate, and how did it come about? And where is the Hellenic Defense Forces today compared to how it was 5-10 years ago? Because that's very interesting. It's a very unique experience. Most people go through the entire military careers, they're having never to negotiate on the existence, the survivability of the armed forces through non-combat means, because technically it would have been the end of the Hellenic Defense Forces through other than war, basically.
Yeah. So the first thing is that when you speak with bureaucrats in general, but bureaucrats, some things that you think that they are self-evident, they are not. So they speak with numbers, and they tell you, your industry loses 1 million per day, for example. Yeah, okay. However, if you can prove that in the end of the day, the losses will be much, much, much less, you can arrange for some pretty good agreements as contractor or subcontractor, and also explain how the chain, the logistical chain works, and if you need to have some immediate response, you cannot have it if you don't have your own defense industry. Then you start to convince them, and from the initial unbelievable position that was, they wanted practically to shut the Hellenic defense systems down. I'm not kidding. This is our main industry, producing ammunition. I mean, imagine if you cannot produce your own ammunition at all. So the initial demand was to shut it down. So when I spoke with the Prime Minister and the Minister, really the whole idea was from the 5 factories to be able to save, to save 2 or 3. So we said, okay, if we can save 3, it's fine. and then try to have a 20% loss of jobs, but no more. So we were ready to accept some losses. Now the strategy was multifolded. So I'll tell you, one thing is, to try to get some agreements. And we had some amazing agreements, even with Rheinmetall in Germany. We had with American companies. So we had some agreements and became contractors, and we showed subcontractors. We showed to the Troika some contracts. They say, look at this. So now we're in a much better position. This helps you to negotiate, of course, when you say, okay, we're in bad shape, but look at this. We're going to be much better in the near future. The second thing is to really try to avoid the loss of jobs, and explain that you can move, for example, some guys that are in admin, make them be more productive, have some internal transfers. In the end, to cut a long story short, it was agreed that no unit would be immediately shut down. Only one would be shut down after 3 years. And what is more important, there would be no firing, but we would give to 10%, not 20%, the opportunity, if they want, to leave earlier, to have their pension earlier.
And was there cut in pensions and those kind of things at that time, or?
Oh yes. Okay, come on, even the salaries in Greece went through some tough times. I can tell you that I lost 50% of my salary. I'm talking about 50%, half.
50% of salary was cut in Greece.
Yes, half.
When you were in the Navy.
Yes, correct.
Wow.
Yeah, it's yeah. Okay, if it's not 50%, it's probably 44 point something. Yeah, half of my salary. Which again, when you arrange everything in your life, from mortgages to, I don't know, anything you can think, you have in your mind, and you're a public servant, that you have a steady salary. So suddenly you did not have the salary, and again we were the lucky ones, because in the private sector you could be fired on the spot. So at least in the public sector we had a huge salary cut, and this is why I'm telling you. I mean, check the numbers. It's interesting to see the GDP per capita for Greece before 2008 and nowadays. That, of course, we had some improvements. Still, we were much better that time. Anyway, my advice would be, to really try to be friendly. If someone right now wants to negotiate, you don't negotiate, based on the sheer power. Come on, we are the armed forces, we need it, we don't care. No, it does not really work that way. You really need to convince that you're on the same side with the negotiator. You want really genuine transformation, and you want to improve the situation, and you want to really take into account their advice. This is how they will also be open to listening to your points of view. And this is what happened, by the way. After that, we had a new government, radical left government, and the whole effort was torpedoed. The good thing is that we did not have. We shut down, I think, in the end, a couple of industries, but from the 5. Again, we did not have many people that were fired. And that was tough. And that was tough because, again, when the radical left government came, they said, we don't care about any negotiations. We will not negotiate. We don't care about IMF. And after a while, we were very close to Grexit, to the Greek exit of the European Union, that was avoided in the last moment. So I think that if we did not have this change in government, at least as regards the Hellenic defense industry and the Hellenic defense systems, the situation would have been much better than what is now.
Excellent. No, this is a tiring, tough time for any nation to go through, and to be part of it in that manner is a fascinating experience to have lived through. You should write a book, How to Negotiate with the IMF, and survive that thing, because the tendency is to be, hey, we have a right. And to be tough, but you have to transform, and I think warfare in itself is changing. So transformation of your infrastructure possibly is a good thing.
Yes, of course, it's a good thing, and we try to do so. And I think that in the end, the crisis helped Greece transform in many sectors.
Yes.
So we should have done some things on our own. We did that under pressure. We did that with great losses, and I told you the financial losses of myself, my family. However, there were really some things that we needed to do. Some things were not needed and were not necessary. And frankly, they were even wrong, that we were dictated to do. But there were some transformations that we should actually thank the institutions, the IMF, ECB, and TC for imposing, quote unquote. Of course, they made many mistakes.
I agree. I think some of the things, prescriptions, should be done on your own, and without pressure, and in your own time. And if you do that, the pressure or the mistakes would be far fewer. So I think that's very interesting. And so since then, I think you've had your 32 years career in Navy, and I do know for a fact that people who are in policy, planning, and strategy, they are the best officers, often the thinking warriors. They're the intellectual or the scholarly warriors, as they're called in the military. So you are definitely one of them. And since then, you've moved on into full-time academic role. Tell us a little bit more about that. How did that transition come about? Where do you see Dubai? Now we are going to transition, because we've talked about your story of your community, which is the Navy, and how you feel about it. But let's focus now about the future, where you are, and how do you see the important projects you're involved with? What are the things that require a sense of urgency? What are the things that excite you about the future of humanity, future of Greece, or future of the region?
A couple of things about the academic life and Dubai and the transformation here before I move to my vision and the thing that I want really to speak about. So since you have lived in Dubai yourself, you know that Dubai changes from day to day, from month to month, not from year to year. And it's a huge transformation what's happening now. So I can tell you that if you want to live, if someone wants to live transformation, he needs to come to Dubai and understand a lot of things that has to do with the will, has to do, of course, with the power to do so. But again, it has to do with mainly the will to do something and the planning, good planning. When the Emiratis were telling us, that they will have a probe to Mars, Arabs on Mars, everybody was laughing, frankly. It happened. So, and you can see, everything is better, bigger, whatever in Dubai, the biggest library, the largest, eye, like the London Eye in Dubai, everything. So, and every time you have something new, the biggest safari outside Africa. So it gets crazy what is going on here. But you can see people following a really good leadership that does not care only about itself, cares about the country, cares about the future, plans correctly, diversifies its economy. Very, very, very good. This is about Dubai. Now about myself, after my first passion, that was the Navy, and once an officer, you're always an officer. If my country needs me at no time, I will go back and fight. I hope that it will never have to be this way. But your first passion is your country, your nation, and really, really, really This is for a lifetime. You get married to this. Again, once an officer, always an officer. The second passion was education. So having already obtained 3 master's degrees, and one of them with you in Harvard, the other 2 in Naval Postgraduate School in California, and also my PhD, I was recruited only 3 months after my retirement by the American University in the Emirates here. Speaking about meritocracy, not that I am a super, professional or academic, but I had the opportunity as a foreigner and a new academic to become the department chair, program director of the bachelor's, then program director of the master's. Now I am the Senate chair of the university. So, and this is, my 4th year, not even 4th year, 3 years and a half in academia. This shows that if they think you have potential, they don't stop you. It's like the US used to be once, the land of opportunity. Dubai, UAE, they have this mentality, and definitely they have this mentality in my university. So I'm very happy about that, and I'm very happy that I can really contribute in sharing my experience and my knowledge as well, because I'm in the security and global studies college. So actually my university has it's the only private university that has a security college. It's a little bit sensitive in the Arab world, security, but we have an amazing team with professors from around the world. It's beautiful anyway. But this is me, this is Dubai, this is really having a good life, having fun.
And so what does Dubai tell you about the future of the region, future of cities, future of global politics? Is Dubai going to be replicated in other places? Like, what does it tell you? And what is the future of Dubai?
It is the place to replicate. For me, it's going to be the most livable city by 2050. I'm sure about this. And people say, come on, you cannot have this in a country or in a region that it's so hot. The main problem is climate, frankly. The answer is no. The answer is no. I mean, now there is a project that it sounds crazy, a huge motorway only for cyclists. We're talking about 40, 50, 70, 100 kilometers, grandiose projects. Yeah. And all of it being, air conditioned, so that you can go. Really, when you hear that, you laugh. When they first told me, you will come to Dubai and you will see that there are, bus stops that are air conditioned, I laughed. I say, come on, what are you talking about? And they are. So it's not only the mall, it's not only the fountain, it's not only the things that people know about Dubai. Dubai really has been transformed. I live in an area that on the one side you can go and you can see practically how Dubai used to be, so it's almost desert. On the other side, it's so green that you could easily think you are in England. And this is all man-made. They have changed even the microclimate.
Yeah, so, but there is a star that is emerging somewhat to the west and somewhat to challenge Dubai, which is the Saudi Arabia and Riyadh. And when you talk about transformation, now that is a very interesting transformation story. I mean, Imran Khan wanted to do transformation of Pakistan, and after 4 years, he didn't get far. But I think the same 4 years, the Prince Mohammed bin Salman has been able to achieve a humongous transformation in Saudi Arabia. A lot is yet to happen, to be seen. But Saudi Arabia is going to give Dubai a tough time. How do you see this rivalry, friendship play out? And I think let's talk about that. It's what happening in Saudi Arabia, the kingdom, if you may. And then let's talk about the Abraham Accords, which is slightly more macro in the region that has happened.
Yes, look, there is much room for cooperation along with the competition. Mohammed bin Salman, I think, has as a role model Mohammed bin Zayed, and we have to be clear. We see, that there are things that are already done in the Emirates, and Saudi Arabia tries to do like the opening with the tourism sector. Tourism sector is huge. Also tolerance. Tolerance is extremely important for the whole idea of Emirates, a country that has less than 15% of Emiratis and more than 85% of expats working, and everybody really is happy. I mean, it's a country that has a ministry of happiness. I'm not kidding. Again, this is true. So I think that Mohammed bin Salman really has been transforming the society, first of all, of Saudi Arabia. We see the opening to females and the opening to the world. And I think that especially in Saudi Arabia, the leadership is a little bit more progressive than the society. Usually it's vice versa. So probably they were not even ready for such, such changes. If you see this is my cat's tail. My cat is here and she's playing around. So if you see a cat in the Zoom, so it's Luda. You can say hi. So you can see Mohammed bin Salman. You can see Mohammed bin Salman being a true leader, transformational leader, and of course, if Dubai, for instance, is a huge tourist destination, and suddenly you have not only Riyadh, many places in Saudi Arabia being a rival, this is a problem. On the other hand, this could be also a win-win. So you can always check how we can have, instead of confrontation, cooperation. And this is where I will go to the end of our discussion. I want really to discuss about this. But let me start when we speak about cooperation with Abraham Accords.
Yes, very
Abraham Accords is extremely interesting. I mean, I remember when I first
pushed
came
through by
here,
Trump of all the people.
Yeah. I for his own reasons, of course. But when I first came to the Emirates, they told me now there are a couple of things that you should be sensitive when you speak in class. It's global studies. So when you speak about the Palestinians and the Palestinian issue, you have to be a little bit careful. Okay, guys, right? I got it done. So later on, when suddenly, because it was sudden for the society, you had this Abraham Accords, everybody was stunned. Not the ones that are here and watch what has been done in the past. So the cooperation between Israel and the Gulf countries has been, has been done for a long time. It's a long process, and we did not decide one day, we are friends now with Israel. Why this? First of all, because of Iran's aggressive policy in the region, Iran controlling 4 Arab capitals, Beirut, Damascus, Sana'a, and of course Baghdad. And this was really something that Saudi Arabia mainly could not tolerate, but also the other countries. UAE, as you know, they have a problem with Iran because they consider 3 islands that are occupied by Iran. Again, this is a matter of interpretation. Of course, I feel myself as an Emirati, I completely support them in this claim. And I can tell you that cooperation in order to contain Iran, which is the biggest country in the area, I'm talking about, the area of the Gulf, because in the Muslim world, you have also Egypt, you have also Turkey. But really, here, Iran was the main player, and they wanted to contain it. And in this regard, there was much cooperation under the table with Israel. So the ones who knew that, really were not extremely surprised by the Abraham Accords. After all, UAE and Bahrain, they never had, a war, so it's not a peace treaty. It's normalization of relations, really. Of course, the impact is huge. And, I don't think that you will see easily, but in the end, it will happen, an official cooperation between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Again, because the transformation needs to be a little bit gradual, and the Prince Mohammed bin Salman is really doing a lot of things in a very, very, very fast time, and sometimes the society is not ready. So I think the Saudi society is not ready for an agreement with Israel like the Emirati society was, and I think it was especially because you have this unbelievable number of foreigners here. Expats, and they have this mentality of tolerance very much in their policy. So Abraham Accords, and I could include there because it's not Abraham Accords, but it's important. Morocco, it's that signed as well. It's really a framework that shows the future, a future of cooperation, an arc, I would say, of cooperation. You see the cooperation in the Mediterranean Sea from Spain, France, Italy, Greece, Cyprus. I will not include Turkey, not because I hate Turkey, because Turkey is a little bit, on the revision side of history. So they want with the Mavi Batan, they want the biggest part or all the part of the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. This is why you see in most cases they are a little bit marginalized by the nation as well, and there is no question about that. So we are talking about cooperation. When Israel can have cooperation with Arab countries, why we cannot speak about cooperation of Greece and Turkey? Why not of Pakistan and India? If I say to someone this, he would probably laugh. but I think it is achievable. And before you think that I'm crazy, I will explain. And this is what I feel passionate about, and this is what I really want to talk about as regards transformation.
No, absolutely. I think it's fascinating what you're talking about, the transformation, and definitely Abraham Accords is a big example of that. I think the cooperation between the Gulf states and some elements of Israeli, either private sector or the government, has been ongoing. I remember I was in Dubai 2010, and someone from US, is actually a Harvard Law School person I know, she had mentioned that there is, people who are decision makers have contacts with each other. And that's always the fact that governments, security agencies, intelligence agencies, you may be on war or other kind of arrangements with each other, but they do have relationships and linkages with each other. So there was some cooperation, particularly that you mentioned, about Iran, and particularly its nuclear program. There was, and I think that has led to a series of these things. So this is not definitely a surprising thing. It was something in the making.
Yes, for sure. And I can tell you that the cooperation in the region is going to be greater if we understand the main common theme that we have, which is our vulnerability. And here I will try to give you a couple of examples to show you why what we consider, a disaster or a crisis or a problem, really is not a challenge. Really, it's an opportunity. Let me start, with the unbelievable earthquake that we had in Turkey and Syria. More than 40,000 dead already in Turkey. We don't know the number in Syria, but should be similar. And the result in the political, if you like, arena was to bring the traditional potential enemies, Greece and Turkey, very close to each other. So we had this in the past in 1999. We called it, the earthquake diplomacy. There was a big earthquake in Turkey and a big earthquake in Greece. Of course, we had the honeymoon for 3 months, 4 months. After that, everybody forgot about it. Now it's much bigger what happened. But I want to highlight that the foreign minister of Turkey, the president of Turkey, the defense minister of Turkey, that practically, and for reasons I think of internal consumption for the elections, really, they had a rhetoric of war. We will come one night, we will attack one night. 10 days, 5 days before the earthquake. After the earthquake, and when Greece was the first country that really sent...
So there was a heightened state of alert between Greece and Turkey just before the earthquake.
Oh yes,
we don't know about that.
The worst in history. The rhetoric was really extremely inflammatory. So there is this famous expression of President Erdogan that he said it at least 5 times: "We will come one night." Come on, I mean, come. This is a direct threat, okay. If you want to come. Why do you say this?
President Erdogan says those kind of things.
But it was repeated by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, by the Minister of Defense. So it was in the rhetoric of Turkey for almost 2 months. Every single day or every 2 or 3 days, we would hear the same thing. It was the first time in history, and I have been in many crises, from Greece and Turkey. I never before saw this thing. Suddenly, after the earthquake, and when Greece responded, was the first that sent, responders. We always help, of course, and I'm sure that Turkey helps as well Greece whenever there is a problem like this. Above all, you are humans. The same persons that were practically saying we will attack you say, guys, we have this proposal, 6 new things, check on this, based on this, we can discuss, we can solve our problems. So entirely, 180 degrees change of direction. But my question is, why do we need an earthquake in order to change our mindset? Why? As I told you in the beginning, my grandparents were living in a village that was half, Turkish, half Greek. They had amazing relations among them, amazing relations. So there was no fighting. I will come to this again back later. Think about now the pandemic. We had more than 7 million dead people around the world. People do not know, in Spanish influenza, in Spanish flu, that was just after World War I,
50 million people.
We had more wars than in the world. Yeah. In the war we had less, and it was considered to be the Great War. But the pandemic had more deaths, so more fatalities than the war. So then, and now during the pandemic, you saw UAE helping Iran, and I just explained the relations between UAE and Iran are not the best in the world. You had countries that really were against each other, cooperating hugely, or even having practically a moratorium. There was no crisis, there was no threat. Everybody tried to save himself and his neighbor. So it is obvious that when you have a problem, which is a big one, you concentrate on the problem and you also concentrate on the cooperation. So cooperation is not something that should be ruled out a priori. You cannot say a priori, I cannot cooperate with the Turk. Of course you can. You did that many times in the past. Many times in the past. You had even, a friendship agreement between Kemal Atatürk and Eleftherios Venizelos, the leaders at the time of Greece and Turkey. You can do it. Of course, if you ask a Turk, he will tell you, no, come on, Greeks, they want everything for themselves. If you ask a Greek, say, look, they violate all our rights and our, not only, they threaten our sovereignty, not only sovereign rights. So, and again, this is because we want it to be like this. This is a little bit, a constructivist argument. The world is what we made of it.
Yes.
So if we really want to transform, we don't need a divine intervention like a huge pandemic or earthquakes or tsunamis or floods. My point is that in the end, what we do after pressure from things that we cannot control, we can do it alone. Let's assume, before going to a table of negotiations, that we had a big pandemic, that we had a big earthquake, or that we are going to have, I don't know, an alien invasion in 10 days. So this should be the mentality. How I can help you, how you can help me, so that we have a win-win situation. Because usually, when you have confrontational attitude, you end up with a lose-lose situation. So cooperation, I may sound a little bit liberal here, but cooperation is important, and you should not think of yourself in a very realist way that, if my potential enemy wins 5 and I win 4, I don't want the agreement because he won more than me. It's not like this. We're talking about absolute gains. If he gains something and I gain something, even if it's less, we both win. So
but this goes against human nature. I have been involved in transformation in corporates, in organizations, foundations, private sector. I've always found human beings delay or resist changing their behavior, even if the disaster is like 10 feet away. So they feel that they're going to avoid the disaster and things going to get better, and that they can go on living the way they did and not changing their behavior. They will not modify their behavior and invite trouble until the disaster comes on their heads. And then by that time, it's too late. I think jobs have to be cut. Things have to be done drastically. So how do you cater for that basis of human nature that we resist change? And for generations, people have taken adversarial views of other countries. And how do you move that from confrontation to cooperation?
If you believe, in homo homini lupus, which is, the man is good for the other man, and the bad nature of man, then it's hard to really try to change that, because it's human nature, as you said. On the other side, Socrates used to say that nobody is willingly bad. So everybody is born really with a good nature. So the whole idea is that probably we need a little bit of more disasters in order to understand, the vulnerability and change things. There was a good old joke that said, that everybody believes in God. The atheist believes in God the minute that he's on the plane and the plane is ready to crash. He believes in God automatically. So
that is exactly that.
And the communist, by the way, really believes in capitalism when he gets some good money in his hands. So there are everybody, it's good, the ideal world, but practically when you face issues, you change your mind. So the whole thing is, can we change through education? And this is where we have a role to play. Can you change through education the mentality, the mindset? This can be the confrontation. If you learn, that your enemy is India. Indians learn from very, very early that their enemy is Pakistan. If you learn, that okay, we have Kashmir. What we're going to do with Kashmir, and not, Kashmir should be a country of resources for everybody. We could have, easy access, so that we can win, both of us, from this. The same as regards, the Aegean Sea, Cyprus that is divided, everything. So if you don't teach that, if you don't try to speak about cooperation, when you speak about cooperation, most likely you will be considered to be a traitor. But again, it's a matter of mentality. If you change your mentality, and you have to change it, from early on, You cannot suddenly, you cannot say to a Palestinian after, 70 years of fighting, Israelis are your friends. No, they are not. Turks are the friends of Greece. No, they are not. They could be. They could be. And we should work in order to achieve this cooperation and not wait for a huge disaster, a pandemic or an earthquake or a tsunami in order to come closer to each other. Because
so I have a view on this, which is education is important. It takes a lot of time, and people's belief system sometimes is immune to logic and education. They don't. If you believe in something, no amount of evidence will to be the contrary. But the thing that can be more important than the belief is how hot or how heavy is your pocket with the dollars, which is basically my thing is on prosperity. Is there a common prosperity, common good? Hey, we are in it together. Let's have a good time. Let's all have a party. And why should we all be miserable? Why can't we be better off? Is there a shared prosperity way in which Turkey, Greece, the Middle East, and the problem that you talk about is very much a problem between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Like Afghanistan has been fighting for 50 years and they are in a very, they haven't seen prosperity. They just know how to fight. And with whatever happens to Pakistan or any other country. So how do you change that mindset is through, a lot of create possibility of wealth. I think the US did that with the Marshall Plan. I think without the Marshall Plan, I think Europe probably would have descended into fighting again. I think China was doing it with this BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. So one needs a lot of investment to create joint prosperity within the people. What do you think of that?
Soviet Union, by the way, tried the same with, people don't know it, the Molotov Plan. It was like the Marshall Plan. Anyway, it is true, but this is a case that, you tried to help your friends. Now, it's much more difficult to try to bring together your enemies. So it's much more difficult. But of course, if there are resources out there, and you understand that in the end, with your behavior, you will not be able to use the resources, and your enemy will not be able to use the resources. But if you cooperate, you will both gain something out of the resources. Then I think that you can, change things. Another thing with the transformation, though, is when you have this problem with society, with history, and the history of India and Pakistan is heavy loaded, and Greek and Turkey heavy loaded too, you can have transformation, top down, not bottom up. So the transformation in Saudi Arabia, it did not come from the society of Saudi Arabia that say, okay, let's be very, very open now. No. It was from a leadership that really, really, really tried to change that. It's always harder, of course, in a democratic country that you have elections and you can become a martyr or a scapegoat. We have discussed that, in Harvard many, many times. But again, leadership plays a role in the transformation. You have to educate your people, and you have to really, really, really try to transform, because this is the leadership challenge, the big challenge. Make them see the reality, and the reality is most of the times is not really good, and try to change it. So again, you need resources, you need leadership, and in the end, you need also the education. Education is important. With these three things, you can really, change the mindset.
And again, interesting you say that, because Henry Ford would say that if I were to listen to my consumers and what or market survey, what if I had asked what people wanted, all of them wanted a faster horse. And not a car, but so my thing was to give them something that they did not realize that they needed, and to make it real for them. And that is the thing about a visionary leader. And I think UAE has that in the form of both the rulers of Abu Dhabi and Dubai. I think Saudi Arabia now has that. that they lead their people in terms of opinion, in terms of the future and vision, and show that and create a better reality for their people than that was possible before. One area, I think, out of this Abrahamic Accords of Cooperation, I think, although that may, in terms, subcontinent may suffer because of that, is technology. We know that Israel is one of the best in the world in technology. I think as Middle East looks to evolve, develop, they have done the brick and mortar approach, which was primarily built on Bangladeshi, Pakistani, and Indian labor workers. But now that has done where it could have taken them. Now you need technology, growth, innovation. And I think that's where, Israel can play a very positive role in the wider GCC. And I think that's quite visionary of them if they can collaborate on that area and talking about cooperation in an area to create wealth and to create greater alignment.
I completely agree. I am one of the supporters of the Abraham Accords, explaining that this will be, again, a win-win, not only for both countries, for the region. The region will benefit from this cooperation. Sometimes when you do something in order to benefit yourself, the others can benefit as well, from your growth. Yes, I think that this is the case for the Abraham Accords, and I don't want to be misunderstood. If they call me tomorrow and tell me come back to Greece, we need to fight with Turkey, I will be very glad to do so. I have been trained to do so. I'm an officer, and my country is my number one, priority. However, I really think that if mentality change is for both. I don't want the mentality changes of Indians, but not of Pakistanis. I don't want the mentality change of Greeks, but not of Turks. I want both sides to change the mentality and understand the win-win. If we can do that, really, in the end, we will have more cooperation. And some countries have been doing so lately. And of course, Abraham Accords is the main agreement that we can see that it's not the only one, by the way.
I think finishing off your theme of cooperation, I think one thing I would say is that the human beings are driven by two great emotions, fear and love, and we would like love to drive us to do good things. But as you've seen, fear is, of course, more potent. And I think if you look at it, cooperation, NATO, created out of fear of the Soviet Union, European Union, fear out of war or warfare, and has achieved a lot of good and a lot of cooperation. So do you see as a NATO against climate change or a NATO against financial insecurity or financial crisis, do you see that the NATO was military, mechanical force, and you find that there is another form of NATO that can come up, which is a better version, leads to more cooperation, in a positive way and more inclusive for the betterment of humanity? And we should write a paper on it. We should definitely write a paper on NATO of climate change.
I will not name it NATO, but strengthening global institutions is extremely important. For the improvement of the life of global community, and climate change is probably the most important and pressing issue in this. But always the mentality is you need to minimize your threats, or you try to maximize your profit. Either way, if you see it as an offensive realist or as a defensive realist, really in the end, cooperation, you can cooperate. Why? Because even if it's not in your myopic self-interest, in the end, it's going to be your interest. So you will not do it because you're a good guy. You will not do it because you are kind-hearted or because you want to help everybody. You will do it because in the end, it will improve your own life. So, yes, you are very right, but I will not use NATO.
No, and NATO as a symbolic cooperation agency.
Make at least EU.
Make it an EU. Maybe call it EU. But it'll be fascinating paper in EU against a cooperation against climate change or natural disasters. How can you create warning systems for that purpose? But anyways, KK, it was a fantastic to have you with us and having a very wide-ranging discussion that took us from the Black Sea, from the shores of the Black Sea to the islands of Greece, then back to Boston, to the Naval Academy, which is one of the very finest institutions, the U.S. Naval Academy. From there, and then back to Greece and Turkey, and back to Middle
Greek
East.
Naval Academy.
The Greek Naval Academy. The Greek Naval Academy, and then back to UAE and the region, and talking about cooperation and how you've talked about how disaster or fear brings people together. It's human nature, and how that could be fostered for better cooperation and better peace. So thank you very much for joining us. Any parting thoughts that you have to share with your audience?
We become the change. We bring about the change that we want. We cannot speak about change if we are not part of it. So if the audience really believe that we need to transform, if they really believe that we need to change, they must do something about it. They cannot stay idle. So my final thought, or even a piece of advice, if I may, is do something about it. When you care about something, when you see that something is not correct and you want to transform it, you want to change it, don't stay idle. Do something about it.
And fantastic. And thank you very much, all of the audience, for joining us. I think what we talked about was Grand Central Strategy. KK, as a friend, is not only curious and academic, but he's also very imaginative. And that, of course, I'm sure comes from partly his father and his mother and his academic pursuits. And we've seen how humanity is evolving, warfare is evolving, how countries go through crises. And sometimes the crisis forces you to do or to take the right actions. But the real test of leadership, visionary leadership, whether it's in Pakistan or Greece or Turkey, is to make the right decisions of cooperation, of growth, before the crisis hits. So you are able to plan and prepare for the future. With that, we end our third episode of Alchemy of Transformation. Fascinating to have you join a discussion about the region, about Grand Central Strategy in diplomacy, in foreign policy, and how we can all play a role in transforming humanity and transforming our society. Thank you.